Thank you for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and of course I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Adrian.
Hey.
And today we are going to be taking a look at the HBO Max release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Our review coming up on The Drive Back. Zack Snyder's Justice League is directed by, well, Zack Snyder, and stars Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and Henry Cavill. Determined to ensure Superman's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain, Bruce Wayne aligns forces with Diana Prince with plans to recruit a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. It is available to watch, stream, whatever you want to call it, now on HBO Max. So, I think we would do this review a disservice if we didn't address the elephant in the room, what our thoughts were about the 2017 Justice League movie, which I learned today is being called the Justice League because Joss Whedon did it. What do you think of the previous Justice League? I mean, we haven't really reviewed it on the channel yet. We were kind of waiting to do a DCEU franchise fever.
Sure.
But what are some general thoughts about the original?
Yeah, I definitely saw it in theaters. I can't remember when this came out or anything, but I remember leaving and feeling that the movie it tried to do what it took Marvel 4 or 5 movies to do, which was to bring everybody together without telling us who 4 out of 5 of them are, I think was the case. We knew who Batman and Superman were, but we didn't have Wonder Woman, Aquaman, or the Flash. Or did we have Wonder Woman?
I think
Cyborg.
Wonder Woman's movie came out before this time.
Yeah, so we had half of them.
Yeah.
We tried to introduce 3 new characters with 0 backstory. And then not only that, in the first movie, I think the Flash got like 20 minutes of full screen time. I don't even know who his character, what his motivations were. I had no clue. So I left the movie feeling almost like maybe I watched the trailer to a movie or like that I didn't know. Like it almost, I don't want to talk about the new one yet, but it's just so different. And it was almost just like Joss Whedon pick and chose what he wanted to include, and it didn't make a new story. It just wasn't cohesive. What did you think?
I'll be blunt. The 2017 Justice League is a dumpster fire of a movie. It is awful.
It's not as bad as Suicide Squad, though.
Suicide Squad is a lot worse. Absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to someone today. If I had to rate the 2017 Justice League, I'd probably give right now in the ballpark about 20 to 30.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you.
And I haven't seen it for a while, and we'll probably rewatch it if we do a DCEU franchise fever. I did not like the movie. The visual effects were awful, especially with the whole, Henry Cavill mustache scenario.
That was only for like 30 seconds of the movie.
Yeah, but it looks so bad. But then also the fact there was, reshot scenes that didn't feel like they tried to force more humor into it. It didn't work.
At all.
But enough about that. Let's get into the Snyder Cut, which we'll call it. I'm not going to call it Zack Snyder's Justice League. The Snyder Cut. General thoughts before we go into spoilers. What did you think?
I think this movie is leagues better than the original, and it does the original idea of whatever Zack Snyder's initial intention was. It definitely does it justice. I think it was absolutely enjoyable. I think I don't by any means think this is a 10 out of 10 film. I don't think it was ever going to be, but this is definitely a movie that I would say you should go watch. It definitely changes the entire storyline pretty much, or at least it fleshes it out in ways that were never seen before, and it gives each character their own amount of depth, and basically each character has their own act, almost, you could say. as it kind of builds up the teams, almost.
Yeah.
But it kind of builds up the team in a way that it's almost like a rushed Avengers. And I hate to compare because they're different universes and everything, but it kind of feels like they rushed through the first couple movies, but it's all there now, and it wasn't before. So it's a huge step up for me.
Gotcha. I will eat a little bit of what I had said previously. It is an improvement over the 2017 Justice League film. Obviously, we get to see the whole vision and what Zack Snyder originally wanted to bring us. However, I will not get that 4 hours back. This was way too long. I feel like they gave us, yes, they gave us a lot more, but I felt like there was so much that could have been cut. I feel like there were redundant scenes that could have been left on the cutting room floor. That being said, it is still an improvement, and we'll get into what I liked and didn't like about it when we get into spoilers. But I think it is absolutely an improvement. It is better than the quote-unquote Justice League. But I personally watched all 4 hours straight. I didn't do this in chunks, which I was trying to do. So that's probably why I have a more negative opinion than just watching it in hour or 2 hour chunks. But yeah, I mean, like, I didn't think I was going to come away from this loving it even more. So, but let's go ahead and talk some spoilers. That way I can actually talk these things through.
Sure.
I mean, if you're already going to watch it, if you haven't watched this movie already, then, you know, you're going to. I mean, I feel like a lot of the people who want to watch this movie have already watched it. But I think Adrian's pretty strong in saying to go see it. I would say I'm a little bit more cautious with it. I would do it in chunks. I wouldn't do it all 4 hours at once. Maybe like two chapters by two chapters by two chapters, maybe. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into spoilers. So, what are some the last time we did a review, we did some negative critiques first. Let's go with some positives. So, what are some positives you had about the film? Like, what do you think it did better? What did you like about it?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
I think it did a lot of things better. I think the storyline, I'll just talk about first and foremost, made sense to me.
Okay.
It was a lot more cohesive than the first film. I actually understood, okay, there's 3 items that need to be gathered. Here's where they are. We are being shown how they're received, or retrieved, I should say, and how they're put together. We get all of that. I thought that was absolutely excellent. I thought the big spoiler here, so if you were thinking you weren't going to get a big one, turn away now. Big spoiler, when they actually lose at the end, and then kind of like the Infinity War thing, like they lose when the boxes sync together.
Oh.
I think that was a great storytelling choice. I think that really kind of cemented, again, I hate to do this, but it really cemented that Infinity War feel to me of like, they lost, now what? And we got to see it. We got to see what happened. It's definitely not as drawn out as whatever, like 3 years between how long we had to wait. But I think the story just overall was absolutely better. And I think Zack Snyder's original vision definitely is what they should have stuck with. I cannot imagine an executive watching that and going, and then watching Joss Whedon's cut and going, that one's better. I just can't picture that.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's been a lot weirder things that have happened.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think the story is, compared to the 2017, it is much more complete here. Characters are getting those full arcs, and one of my biggest positives from this movie was Cyborg.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect to like Ray Fisher's Cyborg as much as I did in this movie, and it's unfortunate.
So much depth.
Yeah, which I wasn't expecting, and there's a lot more depth than another character I'll talk in a minute. But I wasn't expecting to like his character so much, and unfortunately, with the controversy surrounding Ray Fisher and Warner Brothers right now, Marvel should swipe him up, because he was fantastic in this movie, and he would be great in any role they put him in. But the other positive is Steppenwolf, like, actually got more about him. We know, like, his struggle, why he's struggling to appease Darkseid, and
his quota of planets.
Yeah, and he's not just some throwaway bad guy now. He actually serves a purpose, which was actually very refreshing.
And I think something they did really well, too, which not only did they give him a purpose, but I feel that he actually had a personality in this movie.
A little bit, yeah.
but just a little bit more, but in those little dialogue sequences that didn't have any dialogue in the first one, in the Snyder Cut, he'll exchange with the superheroes, and you just kind of get a gist of kind of his little quirks and how he thinks about things in a much more interesting way. I think it added a ton, just those little scenes.
It
and
does.
The redesign I thought was great as well.
Yeah, it's a little over the top, but it kind of works.
Alien
Yeah,
he's a crazy alien. I liked it.
But let's kind of go down some more positives. You kind of mentioned already, a lot more people are getting fuller arcs. There's a lot less humor in this one than there was in the 2017 version, but there was more humor than what Zack Snyder is known for, which was kind of a nice balance.
Yep.
I never thought anything was like laugh out loud funny, but it was, at least somewhat interesting.
The first cut to me felt like they were trying to capture like Thor Ragnarok without doing the work first.
Yeah, or like Avengers, yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to go for all those quips and humor when we didn't even know anybody or why they would joke about that. And this one, I'll give an example and you can agree with me or not, but I feel like the treatment they did for Aquaman this time was significantly better. In the first one, there was just kind of like always rock and roll music, kind of like a Tony Stark mentality. Just always like Led Zeppelin or something playing when he was going into the sea and swimming around. In this one, they did a much more kind of subdued, serious music. Whenever his theme song, I guess, was much more serious, which I think was really good.
I didn't pick up on that, which is interesting. I usually do. There is a weird moment.
You're the music guy.
Yeah, honestly, it's gonna. I guess it's one of my critiques is the music in this movie did not like. It didn't wow me. It felt like they used the same music over and over and over and over again.
Especially when Wonder Woman was on the scene.
Yes, and not even like her good theme. Yeah. It was like this weird choir one, which didn't make any sense. I do like the reappearance of the Man of Steel theme, which I really love.
That was great.
Which was really good.
And the new suit was excellent as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too up to date on my DC knowledge, so I don't know what the black suit means or something like that. I know it's like for him recovering.
I think it just came from the Death of Superman comic.
Something like that? Yeah, it's supposed to help him with recovery or something. I don't know. But I'm trying to think of some other positives because I have a laundry list of negatives, yeah.
Couple cameos that were pretty neat. We did actually get to see Darkseid as well as a lot of his henchmen and stuff. They didn't really get fleshed out as much as you might hope, but they were in there. We got a Green Lantern member, which was great, in 2 different states of life, which was fantastic. And then we also, I always forget, the Martian? Is that his name?
Martian Manhunter.
Martian Manhunter, we got that cameo. There was Lex Luthor, kind of a cameo near the end.
The Lex Luthor and Deathstroke scene was in the 2017 version, so it was just reused here, which I love that moment.
And then we also had the Deathstroke, I forget her character name, but Amber Heard and Mara and Joker all talking to the Batman, kind of rehinting about Lois Lane being the key.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I know we differ on that, so we'll wait till we go into your negatives. But I just thought the movie, I don't know. I mean, it really did it for me. I thought it was just way better. Again, not perfect by any means. We can critique this all day. I could critique it. But as far as what it was trying to do and what the fans were hoping for, I personally think that they did a great job with what they were tasked with in terms of meeting expectations. I think it was really good.
Absolutely. The other thing I do want to mention that's a positive is, yes, this movie is long, and I'll talk about that when I critique it, but I wasn't expecting to watch this in one sitting. So the biggest positive I can say is that it actually engaged me from start to finish. I didn't feel like I had to step away at any moment, which was really nice. So that actually felt pretty good.
Yeah, and a lot of the big fight scenes between like the Amazon and then stuff at Atlantis and even stuff on Earth, like it just added so much depth to the story that I was kind of blown away that there was this much that was already filmed. It literally feels like a whole new movie with a couple of scenes that you might go like, oh, that looks familiar. But even in those scenes, there's stuff that's put in those scenes that make them either longer, shorter, or different. So it feels like a 100% new movie to me.
Yeah, it didn't feel entirely new. I feel like a lot of the footage was from 2017, at least for like the important parts. As far as I know, like I'll have to rewatch the 2017 one again.
From what I know, it was only like what 20% or something was reused footage.
I don't remember. I remember seeing
I think
someone
it's like
said
10
that,
or
like
20%.
I thought someone said 3.5 hours of the 4 hour movie was new footage, and it didn't feel like it.
Oh, it did
So
to me for sure.
I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll have to
Yeah.
rewatch Justice League at some point. But let's go ahead and change gears. Let's start talking some critiques for this movie. And I have to get the biggest one off of my chest. And it's a Zack Snyder movie. So if you're familiar with Zack Snyder's work, you know this is coming. I think this movie is ugly. And I say that not because of the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is actually a nice change. It's a little annoying because it feels like I'm watching the movie on Instagram or something the whole time. But when I say ugly, this movie is essentially black and white. It's black, white, brown, and gray, and there's very little color in it. You only see color when it comes to like Superman's eye beams with Darkseid, maybe the battle with the army in the beginning when they're talking about the first time they encountered Darkseid. It's just not a good looking movie to me. And I actually prefer the 2017 one because it had more color in it. Maybe, I mean, there was more reds, there were more blues, there were more, it wasn't just like sepia. It wasn't like this monochrome color, which is funny because I say this movie's basically black and white, and we're getting a black and white version on HBO Max soon.
I'd be interested to hear what you say after you watch an actual black and white version of the movie.
Right.
I get what you're saying, but I've always been a fan of Zack Snyder's movies. I mean, there's been misses for sure, but 300, I love that kind of color tone. I think it's very unique to his style, and kind of you can identify his films by that. So I personally thought it was okay. I think it also adds a very serious tone to scenes that may not necessarily be received that way if they were full blown saturated and colored and everything. So I get the complaint. It's kind of a universal complaint. I just don't have that complaint.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But what else we got in terms of critiques? I've got.
You said you had a laundry list.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of them at the current moment, and I'm horribly blanking, and this is bugging me.
Caught in 4K lacking on the complaints for Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is a long movie. At 4 hours, I feel like there is some things they could have cut out.
There's a complaint.
Yeah.
I don't think 4 hours is too long, but I mean, we both love movies. I'm not saying you don't, but I never have a problem when a movie hits 3 hours. I'm always like, sure, give me more. If that's your vision, I'll take it. If that's what the movie is, I'll take whatever length. However, there is so much ridiculous slow motion in this movie that I want to see somebody do a cut without any slow motion, and I bet you it's like 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I bet it at least will shave at minimum 20 minutes off the movie if they get rid of all the slow motion.
So I remember one of my complaints for this movie, and I can't remember why, because it's a big one. The VFX suck in this movie. The actual visual effects, like, for the most part, are pretty awful.
What's an example?
So there are several moments when parademons are killed. There's one scene in particular where one's stabbed, and like you see the blood ooze out because they added blood into this movie, and it looks like they did a simulation of fluid and then didn't refine it at all. It looked like superimposed onto the image. There were moments when Steppenwolf didn't look good. I mean, granted, they didn't have the biggest budget for this movie.
Yeah, they were kind of touching everything up, from what I understand.
But across the board, I mean, there's moments when Cyborg CGI didn't look that good. Like the head didn't line up with tracking sometimes. I'm blanking. Like as soon as I'm put on the spot, I'm blanking about these exact moments.
CGI. I'll address that though. I can see what you're saying. I thought the CGI was okay. Again, I guess maybe I was looking at it with that grain of salt that this isn't a full movie. Like, we got basically a cobbled... Well, it is, but it wasn't treated the same. Mm-hmm. This was treated like the stepchild of DC, and they were like, fine, Zack, make it. but you only have $10. And he's like, I can do it. So I kind of watched it with that grain of salt of like, okay, this isn't, we didn't get this in theaters. It was never going to be. So it's going to be a little rough. So I kind of went in with that mindset. Maybe that's why it blew me away as much as it did. But the graphics, I didn't really get that they were bad. I will say that I've never understood the CGI effect for the Flash.
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, I just don't get it because I'm a big fan of the Flash. He's probably my favorite DC superhero. And I've watched the TV show. Like I love it. I've read the comics and I'm a big fan. But when something moves that fast, like I just don't get the level of lightning or like electricity.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
That, and I hate like the waviness. I hate it.
The funniest part of this whole movie was unintentional, but big spoiler. After they lose, and he's like, "You got to break the rule. You got to break it now." Super cool. I was like, "Yes, this is awesome." And then he's running, and then he goes, "Dad." And when he says "Dad," I actually had to like pause it, and I was like, "What's happening here? Why?" And then he says this whole little spiel. But yeah, like that's not how the Flash runs. He doesn't run by like throwing his arms.
It's weird. It looks awful.
He runs normally, just very fast.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get that whole thing.
But the other moment that stuck out with bad visual effects came down to the first sequence with Wonder Woman when she's in the bank or like the court or wherever she's at.
Oh yeah.
And she runs in front of everyone. It's like slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast. It doesn't look realistic at all. I know it's a superhero, but it doesn't look realistic at all. And she's like, it just, it looked bad. It looked bad in the 2017 one as well.
I do want to acknowledge though that I think something that's super interesting is like you just said that, and that felt like a different movie to me because this movie was broken up into sections so well. I feel it was just like, boom, here's Wonder Woman's kind of story to catch you up to now. Here's this person's story to catch you up till now. So I liked the breaking up of it, but that did look a little janky, as well as her kind of like fast forward fighting looks a little weird. Mostly because I feel like maybe they didn't add an effect, but like when she jumps across a whole room to punch someone, I feel like it's just it's like the snap of a finger, and I feel like you'd still see her running.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's just it looks weird. The other big one I want to talk about, complaint wise, is the nightmare sequences. Now, what I mean by the nightmare sequences, for those who don't know the name of it, it's when Batman gets that apocalyptic vision and he has those dreams and nightmares about it. They're supposed to be setting up the second Justice League movie that Zack Snyder was going to make. We now know for a fact, official as of today, which is March 22nd, that Warner Brothers had said the Snyderverse is done. They are not making any more of those movies, and they are not releasing the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. They're setting up a sequel that they know is not going to exist. So why bother taking the time to do it? It doesn't make sense to me. All this stuff was filmed before or after, COVID started, after they knew that this Snyder Cut was being released, and after they knew that it wasn't getting a sequel. So it doesn't make sense to me that they made the footage.
Okay, I can give you two arguments for that. Not really an argument, but counters, I guess. The first one being that was Zack Snyder's vision, was to have a second film. So, right, he's going to build that universe as much as he can. He's given a little bit of leeway on the leash. I would probably do the same thing. I'd be like, here's what the world was going to be. You've all missed it because DC or whoever the executives suck. I can see that kind of like sticking it to them, being like, you guys missed out, the fans want it. And leading me to my second point is, by doing that, how many people are now going to start rallying for the Zack Snyder universe to be built on?
They already are.
Yeah, and now we know that the executives changed their mind. So who's to say that by doing that he wasn't just trying to bait everyone into forcing this into existence again?
I get that, and I think maybe he was. Maybe they were banking on it being so successful that they're like, let's go ahead and do another one. I think especially because of the stuff going on with Ray Fisher and Warner Brothers, and the fact that they're already doing another new Superman movie without Henry Cavill, and Ben Affleck's already lost interest in the part. I don't think it would happen anyway. Without recasts and things, it would be very annoying. Unless they go with a multiverse path, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what DC was already headed down, right? Was that you can make movies about whatever you want because they don't follow a canon line.
Yeah, but I think, then it kind of it negates the purpose for having a Justice League movie if everything exists in its own universe.
I don't think so.
Like, it's not like, oh, let's do a Justice League movie. Let's pull from these different realities, and they all come together for some reason. That doesn't make sense. Unless they do, like, a Crisis on Infinite Earths, but...
That's what Endgame did.
No, they're all in the same world, though.
Well, they're in the same timeline, but they've all jumped timelines multiple times at that point.
No, but they all exist in the same universe. It's not like, okay, let's go to this neighboring reality and grab this Flash, and let's cherry pick this Batman.
I see what you're saying, but I will say that there is kind of... We're supposed to get some sort of sequel in the Flash movie that's in development that is supposed to deal with Flashpoint. So we're going to get that. But yeah, like they just addressed... Or the TV show had a Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, and the Flash from Justice League appeared in that as a cameo. So they have kind of been opening it up to be able to do that. To cherry pick.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what if it happens. But
yeah,
not that the nightmare sequence is bad in any way. It is entertaining. I am going to wholeheartedly disagree with the fans. I do not think it's the best interaction between the Joker and Batman ever. There's a lot of people online calling their discussion the best interaction between these two characters that's ever been seen, and it's not. Like...
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think it was good.
The fact that Joker's like, "Who's going to give you a reach around?" That's horrible. Like why would you put that dialogue of all of that in there, right? Like I do like the taunting about killing Robin. That was very good. And the fact that and you'll have to excuse my language for a moment here on the podcast. But when Batman says to him, like, Harley Quinn's last words were to kill you and make sure that, and he's like, make no mistake, I will fucking kill you. That to do it slow. That was awesome. So, like, it has moments. I still say that Batman and Joker in The Dark Knight in the interrogation room is still one of their better moments. It was better than this one.
It's up there, though. I would say
this is up there. It's top 10, but it's definitely not number 1.
But I think it was cool how they had the nightmare sequences where he gives him the card, right, and that's the promise that as long as he has the card, and then in one of the nightmare sequences, that card is cut in half deliberately. You could tell with scissors. It's the scene where Superman is kind of floating over and there's the Green Lantern guy that's dead on the ground. One of the pieces of debris is half of that card. So in the nightmare sequences, Batman broke the promise. So I get it, that definitely leads into the sequel bait, unnecessary, whatever, kind of that whole thing. But again, I do stick with that. If I was given free reign to create my vision, that was the vision, was to have a sequel. So that's the vision.
Fair enough. Yeah. Anything? And did you have any criticisms? Because I didn't want to hog all the spotlight here.
Of criticisms?
Yeah.
No, the only criticism I have was actually mainly with Aquaman and The Flash. I still feel The Flash was not done correctly. I don't know why, like I said, DC was going for that style. It's not The Flash. I've never seen that illustrated in any of the comics like that. And maybe that's what they're going for, is like still frame, more or less. But it was just weird. And then Aquaman, I still don't like the bad boy, I don't want to be king attitude thing. I get it, but it's never stuck with me. It didn't in his own movie. It didn't in the initial cut, and it was way better in tone this time around, but it still just didn't hit it for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, granted, you could look at it as, oh, the Aquaman movie takes place after this, and his character does get some redemption, but it's still not good. Speaking of Aquaman, I would like to talk about the weirdest scene in this entire movie.
Okay.
The one that everyone I've talked to hates. And that's the moment when he goes back into the water after talking with Bruce,
Yeah.
and all of a
He
sudden,
disappears.
all the women of the village just start singing, and it's the
Yeah.
most awkward scene I think I've watched in a long time. I just sat there.
Well-
It goes on for too long, and it makes no
Totally.
sense.
I 100% agree. And I think it was super interesting because what they're trying to do is make it seem like it's this mystical thing that's going on. But is this the first time it's happened, or do they all go out and sing every time he goes into the water?
And if he was some sort of like mythical figure, like like an elf or like something, I don't know, like that would work. But it's the same character that goes, "My man," and yeah,
Like, it just doesn't fit. Yeah, and that's kind of one of my
yeah.
complaints is just the whole treatment with that character. While again, significantly better in this
Yes.
movie, still to me was not done correctly. Everyone else, I think Cyborg got the best treatment upgrade for sure.
Yes.
No pun intended. But and then the other three have already had their own individual movies, so we're kind of all okay there. But those two, I still feel need more. Aquaman's standalone movie still didn't do it, and I'm nervous for the Flashes. I'm excited because I love the Flash, but I think they need to kind of focus in more on the character and how he actually is, and not who you want him to be. And I think that's the case for both of them.
Yeah, they need to nail down the persona.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to discuss is about Superman in this movie. And he's portrayed in this movie a lot more lighthearted after his initial awakening. He's a lot more lighthearted than I think Zack Snyder's portrayed him. But I'm becoming more and more convinced that you can't make a good Superman movie.
Yeah.
Or you can't make
Too
him...
strong.
You can't make him... Well, they don't make him strong enough.
Yeah.
Like, nothing should be damaging him. Like,
At all.
there is a moment when they all leap at him and he's still standing there. That's perfect. Like, even if Steppenwolf came up and hit him, he wouldn't move.
Yeah.
And
No, I completely agree.
on the opposite side, they made Darkseid too much of a wimp. In the first battle sequence, he takes the one axe to his neck or whatever and starts bleeding, which that visual
Which
effect
also Infinity War. Like,
Yeah.
literally
Like,
an identical scene.
that looked awful when the blood came down. But, like, he took that damage way too easily. And he was being carted away by his friends or whatever. Like, they made him too much of a wimp. And I mean, maybe they don't understand Darkseid. Maybe Zack Snyder just doesn't get him. But
I will say one of the moments that I really do like that was in the original and is still in this one is the moment when, like you said, all three of them are on Superman and he's just standing there and they're not able to do anything. And then the Flash starts to run at him and he kind of like catches up in his vision. And then you find out he can also move that fast. I thought we got a lot more of Superman's speed in this movie, in this cut, which I thought was awesome. But I also think I agree with you that it's almost impossible because, like, Superman can be fighting the largest fight ever known and be having an entirely different mental battle going on with somebody else. Like, he is literally just so overpowered. And they've tried to correct it in the comic books so many times, and you just can't. He's just too strong. So, yeah, like, there's just zero chance they would have lost if Superman was involved in reality.
Yeah. But, it's very true. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up? Because I'm kind of at the end of my list here.
It was a short laundry list, bud.
Yeah. I mean, there's not as much as I thought, but I'm sure if I had more time to think, I could come up with stuff. I'd have to watch it again to kind of nitpick, but those are my general complaints. Yeah,
Totally. I think we can dive into scores because I've kind of said how I feel about it. So let's go ahead. Who goes first?
I'll go first. Sure, why not?
Okay.
I'll bite the bullet.
Oh, one more thing. I was a little bummed. I feel like they still should have included an enhanced version of the Flash versus Superman race. I know a lot of people hated that, but I thought that was super fun and like a lighthearted moment that should have been included. And I think they could have enhanced it and made it more of kind of a bigger scene. And I would have loved that. So I'm bummed that's not in it anymore.
Gotcha. All right. Well, final thoughts. While I do think that this is a genuine improvement over the 2017 Justice League, it is still a little too long this time. I feel like it is a little overbloated. It is ugly. It does have some bad visual effects. but it did keep me engaged for 4 hours, and it is a better film than the Justice League, I guess you could say.
Yes, by a mile, yeah.
But
Or by a league, I should say.
by a league. Something tells me I won't do this score justice. But I have to give it a 57. I feel like that's where I ended up.
57. Okay.
It's still. I mean, if you're a DC fan, you're gonna watch this movie. Like, I would say if you're curious and want to
If you're a
watch something.
fan.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're not gonna convert Marvel diehards with this movie.
No.
They may find it interesting, but I don't know. It just still doesn't stand out to me. I still prefer, like, if I'm gonna watch a Zack Snyder movie that's longer, I will still watch Watchmen any day of the week. I think Watchmen is still one of his better movies, personally.
Interesting.
Yeah, 57 is what I'm going to give it. So that's me. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I ended up giving this a 78, which I know is kind of might seem very high, but I gave it a 78. One, because of all the positives already listed. I'm not going to go into them again. But I am giving this a good score solely because I think with the first cut of this movie, everyone left the theater saying that's bad. Marvel fans said that's bad. DC fans said that's bad. Everyone did not like it. This movie, I think if you watched it with Marvel fans or people that even weren't that into it, you would end the movie and be able to have a discussion about what was good and what was bad like we did here today.
Mm-hmm.
And actually go back and forth about it. And I think that is worthy of a reasonable score because there are positives and there are negatives. And having a discussion is what it's all about. And having an opinion is what it's all about. And I think this movie is now good enough to give people that choice.
Definitely. And it also opens up the conversation that we've had about the precedent this sets for Hollywood. Like, at what point do studios listen to the fans? Because, I mean, ultimately the fans are what gives a movie its popularity. But, so it is a dangerous precedent because you might see things like the Star Wars sequels being decanonized or something like that. You could see movies that are hated being redone, which I don't personally like. I'm always in favor of what is put out is kind of what you get. But on the other hand, this movie is good enough to the point where I would say that I hope studios take a look at this and be like, you know what? Let's trust the director. Let's let them put out the movie that they want.
Totally. And this movie also, I mean, I think I yelled it while watching it to Cassidy. This movie was it was the only time, or not only time, but it was one of the only times where I could so clearly see the difference the director makes. Because usually you have a director that makes a movie and that's very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, okay, that's their movie, or they're kind of different feeling movies, but in the same series. This was a same movie, different director, which I don't think we've ever had before. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Same movie, different director. So it does make a difference, and I completely agree with you that I hope they learn that you hire a director for a reason, and then you just have to trust them. And if it doesn't work, then not to rehire them. It's happened many times.
Mm-hmm.
It's caused a lot of problems in series and in sagas, but the trust has to be there for anything great to happen. And Marvel, again, hate to compare, but they trust those people to carry those movies and to do it justice.
Yeah, I mean, they do exercise a modicum of control because there has to be an overarching story because you'd have canon problems. But
the vision is
But the vision is still the director's.
Yeah.
So
as long as it hits the points Marvel needs it to hit, then they let the directors do it. And DC, I feel, made a misstep in taking that trust away from Zack. I think that was a big misstep, and I hope they learn from it.
Yeah, definitely. So, but that's going to bring us to an end for this episode, our review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And, of course, Adrian, there's something we always like to say, right?
We do, and that would be watch a movie. And now we have two different versions of one movie. So you don't have a choice of watching the same movie two different ways. So go watch a movie. This one I would recommend. It sounds like Garrett, maybe not necessarily as much, unless you're like a superhero. If you're gonna watch it, you're gonna watch it. Is basically
exactly
the takeaway. But there's a lot of movies out there. We've done a ton on this channel that we've talked about. If you want to join the conversation, you can talk to us on any of our social medias. We are on YouTube, which is, if you're seeing our beautiful faces, then you're here. So go ahead and click that bell, hit subscribe, get all those notifications, all that fancy stuff, and comment down below on whatever you want us to watch, or if you hated or loved this movie and you want to put us in our place. That's what it's all about. So having that conversation. But we're on all social medias at The Drive Back, so go ahead and follow us wherever you feel fit, and we'll make sure to say hello.
Always, yeah. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.